In the last video, we finished discussing gas, and that's really the last big topic that we're going to address in this first phase of our inbox contract. In just a moment, we're going to move on to the next phase of the inbox contract, where we're going to start moving this code over to the JavaScript world. Before we do that, there's one or two quick things I want to discuss with you. These are little side topics, so they're not related to our inbox contract, but they're things that are going to appear later on throughout this course. So right now is a pretty good place to kind of do these side topics really quickly. So the first thing I want to discuss is the fact that in MetaMask right now, we only have one account. At present, having one account is just a-okay, like there's no problem with that. We're going to use this one account eventually for doing some development work. But for just a second, I want you to imagine a situation in the future. I want you to imagine maybe 5 years down the line, and I want you to picture Ethereum getting really, really popular. Maybe at that point in the future, we don't really have the idea of bank accounts anymore. And instead, we have the idea of Ethereum accounts. And that's where you keep all of your money. So maybe in this imaginary future, I don't know, maybe it's going to be the real world, we'll see. Maybe you have 3 different accounts so that you can easily organize all the money that you have under your in control. Now, each of these accounts are Ethereum accounts, so they handle Ether coins. That's what's inside of each of these. So you can kind of imagine that in MetaMask, we have account 1 right now. Like that's what this is. This is account 1. And heck, it's even labeled as being account 1. Maybe in this future, account 1 is for spending money. Maybe you have a second account for savings and a third account for conducting business. Maybe you are self-employed and you have a separate business account. Now with every one of these accounts, remember, we have an address, a public key, and a private key. So for you to remember the real important details about each of these accounts, you have to memorize or somewhere write down securely a lot of different information. So account 1 is going to have its own address, public key, and private key. Account 2 will have its own, and same with account 3. I don't know about you, but this is a lot of information to have to memorize. And if you're not going to memorize it, well, you're probably going to write down these numbers somewhere, right? Well, where are you going to write them down? And how are you going to be sure that someone's not going to somehow get their hands on these keys if you write them down on a piece of paper? To solve this issue, the people in Ethereum world have invented the concept of a 12-word mnemonic. A 12-word mnemonic allows us to automatically generate a series of different accounts with a public key, a private key, and an address. We already saw an example of a mnemonic when we first signed up to MetaMask a couple of videos ago. The 12-word mnemonic is a series of 12 random words, like the ones that you see right here. By the way, if you're not a native English speaker, we spell the word mnemonic as you see right here. So M-N-E-M-O-N-I-C. That means, or it's pronounced mnemonic. And a mnemonic essentially is a series of easy to memorize words. So even though these are random words right here, well, at the end of the day, if this is controlling my entire life savings, chances are I can probably memorize these 12 words. Now, the idea behind this 12-word mnemonic right here is that we can feed these 12 words into a mnemonic algorithm. When we feed them into this algorithm, it will spit out a series of different accounts, each of which have their own public key, private key, and address. So rather than having to memorize all of these different keys right here, you can only memorize the 12-word mnemonic. You take that mnemonic, feed it into this algorithm, and it's going to spit out the same exact series of accounts every single time. Now behind the scenes, this is exactly what the MetaMask extension is doing for you and me. So right now, you see that I'm accessing account 1. If I go up to this little circle icon up here at the top right and click on Create Account, a new account is instantly generated for me. This account is very closely related to the one that I was just looking at. It's the next one in a series of pre-generated accounts that are all generated by the same 12-word mnemonic. Now, just looking at a diagram of all this stuff isn't the most helpful thing in the world. So right now, I want to create a new 12-word mnemonic with MetaMask, and I'm going to show you a tool so that you can see this entire process in action. Remember, the entire idea behind this mnemonic is to make it a lot easier for you to manage your keys, your public keys and your private keys without having to write down all this information. Now here's the bad news about the mnemonic. With MetaMask, as it stands right now, we cannot on the fly generate a new mnemonic. When we first installed MetaMask and created a new series of accounts or a new mnemonic, that was pretty much it. And if you want to generate a new mnemonic, you have to reinstall the entire extension. So the extension does not have like a big reset button or anything like that, where you can say, hey, I want to make a completely new series of accounts. So in other words, we have to reinstall MetaMask. Fortunately, that's pretty easy and very quick to do, so let's do it right now. I'm going to right-click on the icon and click on Remove from Chrome. And I'll remove it, and then we're going to open up the Chrome Web Store one more time. So in a new tab inside my browser, I'll find my web store right here. And then on the top left, we'll search for MetaMask again. Here's the extension. I'll click on Add to Chrome, and then we'll click Add Extension. All right, so like I said, it's pretty quick. It's really unfortunate that MetaMask does not currently have that reset feature, but hopefully it'll be added eventually. Now, when we open the extension back up, we have to accept these prompts again, blah, blah, blah. And then we get prompted to add a new password to generate our new mnemonic. So I'm going to enter my password in. This does not have to be the same password as it was previously. Right now we are generating a brand new mnemonic. So I'll click on Create, and here we go. Here's our 12-word mnemonic. So these words right here can be used to generate an entire series of public keys, private keys, and addresses. You can use these 12 words to always generate the same series of accounts. So it's way more important that you remember these words than anything else. Now we're going to use this mnemonic later on in the course. So at this point, I have to ask you, please copy these words and save them somewhere on your machine. So open up a notepad, write it down, whatever you want to do. Just make sure you save these 12 words because we're going to need them later on. So I'm going to copy mine, and on my second monitor over here, I'm going to write these words down. All right, so I just wrote mine down. Hopefully you did as well. Now back inside of MetaMask, I'm going to click on I've copied it somewhere safe. And then just so I remember, I'm going to change my network over to Rinkeby, like so. All right, now I want to show you a tool that demonstrates this mnemonic to account sequence in action. So it's actually really interesting to look at this tool and see the series of accounts getting generated. In my browser, I'm going to navigate to the tool, which is at iancoleman.io/BIP39. So in my browser, I've already opened that page up. Here it is right here. So this is a mnemonic code converter. We can use this tool to either generate a new mnemonic or to restore all of our accounts from an existing one. I highlighted that in reverse. So we can generate a new one, there it is, or we can use an existing mnemonic. If you scroll down a little bit, you can find the BIP39 entry right here, and I'm going to paste my mnemonic into that. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit more and find the coin selection right here, and I'm going to make sure that Ethereum is selected. Now we can scroll down a little bit, and you're going to see a table labeled as derived addresses. So these are all addresses, public keys, and private keys that have been generated from that single 12-word phrase. So in other words, rather than memorizing all the numbers you see right here on the screen, I can just memorize the 12-word mnemonic, and I'll always get this big old series of accounts right here. So you can scroll down. It's showing 20 right now, but if I wanted to, I could just as easily show 50 rows from this thing as well. So all these accounts can be tied and retrieved from that 12-word mnemonic. So as far as a password recovery type of feature goes in Ethereum, the 12-word mnemonic is pretty effective. Now to show you this thing in action, I want you to take note of the first address right here, which starts with 82D5C. If I open up MetaMask, you'll see that my address, it was E82D. So my address in MetaMask is E82D. Yep, that's the first address right there. So by default, when you generate this first account with MetaMask, it's just going to count down the series right here. So it starts at the very first address and then it counts down. So if I go up to the top right up here and click on Create Account, I now have a new account with address 78BC, and sure enough, the next one on the list is 78BC. And I can just keep on creating new accounts, and the sequence is going to go on and on. So 86526 or 256, yep, same one. So I think it's pretty clear at this point in time, hey, you just memorize the mnemonic, and then you'll always have access to this entire series of accounts. So that's pretty much it. Now, I am going to go back and make sure I have account 1 selected, because for development purposes, for you and me, we usually just want to use account 1. There's no good reason for it. It's just so that you and I know that we're always looking at our initial account right here. Okay, so that's pretty much it on account mnemonics. Again, I have to really encourage you to save that 12-word mnemonic because we will need it later on in the course. The big thing I want you to remember about the mnemonic is that we can always use it to regenerate our addresses, our public keys, and our private keys. So the 12-word mnemonic is really the ultimate power over everything that's going on with your Ethereum account. All right, let's pause right here. We're going to continue in the next video, and we're going to make sure that we get a whole bunch of Ethereum inside of this first account right here, so we can continue on and start doing some more advanced things with the Ethereum network. So let's take care of that in the next video.